Alexander the Great is one of the most renowned and debated figures in all of world history. To some, he was an enlightened ruler with a vision of uniting East and West, while to others, he was a tyrant drunk on power and belief in his own divinity. What is certain is that his life remains a subject of fascination, and his conquests changed the map of the ancient world forever. His story truly begins with the sudden and shocking death of his father, King Philip II of Macedon. In 336 BC, Philip, the man who had raised Macedon from a fragile kingdom on the edge of Greece to a dominant military power, was struck down by an assassin's dagger just before he was to lead a grand campaign against the mighty Achaemenid Persian Empire. His death left the throne to his 20-year-old son, Alexander, a young man, brilliant, ambitious, and already tested, yet still unproven as a leader in the eyes of the world. From his father, Alexander inherited three things. The first was the reformed Macedonian army, a force that had become the most formidable in the Greek world, featuring the deadly phalanx armed with long sarissas, elite cavalry companions, and a corps of hardened generals. The second was the Hellenic League, a coalition of Greek states forced into alliance after the Battle of Chaeronea, a union that recognized Macedon as hegemon, with only Sparta standing outside its control. The third was a foothold in Asia Minor, where 10,000 Macedonian troops under generals Parmenion and Attalus waited for the command to march against Persia. Yet these inheritances were fragile. Rivals at court plotted, the Greek state stirred at the chance to throw off Macedonian rule, and enemies in Thrace and Illyria watched for weakness. If Alexander faltered, the kingdom would collapse. He had to prove himself quickly, and so he acted with the boldness that would define his career. Alongside his formidable mother Olympias, he ruthlessly purged opponents at court. Attalus, who conspired with external enemies, was eliminated, while Parmenion was carefully reconciled to his side. No sooner had he secured his throne than unrest spread across Greece. Thebes and Athens murmured of revolt, while the tribes beyond Macedon borders grew restless. Most advisors urged caution, yet Alexander chose audacity. With 3,000 cavalry, he rode south at breathtaking speed. When Thessalians blocked his path at the Vale of Tempe, he did not wait or negotiate. Instead, he had his men carve steps along the steep side of Mount Ossa and appeared behind the defenders, forcing their submission. From there, he was declared hegemon at Thermopylae, secured Thebes' temporary obedience, and received pledges of loyalty from Athens. His lightning pace stunned Greece. In mere weeks, the fragile alliance Philip had built was made secure under Alexander's authority. But this was only the beginning. The following year, Alexander marched north to Thrace with a powerful army. At Mount Haemus, Thracians tried to block his path by hurling wagons down into the Macedonian phalanx. But Alexander foresaw their plan and taught his men how to withstand the assault. Calmly and with discipline, his soldiers opened ranks, or lay flat under their shields as the wagons passed harmlessly over. Rising with a cheer, they advanced and swept the Thracians aside. Further north, Alexander confronted the Trebellians and then ferried his men across the Danube under cover of night in a daring river crossing. Striking the Gedi at dawn, he scattered them completely. Sirmis, king of the Triballians, capitulated. Soon after, impressed by this show of strength, Alexander then turned westward, where the Illyrians were preparing rebellion. At Pelium, he found himself nearly trapped by Cletus and Glaucius, who surrounded his army in the valley. Supplies were running out and escape seemed impossible, but Alexander devised a brilliant stratagem. He ordered his men to perform intricate drills with perfect discipline, sarissas rising and falling in unison, formations pivoting like a machine. The spectacle intimidated his enemies. Then, with a sudden cavalry wedge charge, he opened a path to safety. Guarding his retreat with Catapults, the first use of field artillery in history. Alexander withdrew without losing a man. Days later, in a night assault, he returned to crush the Illyrians and sent them fleeing. Just as he savored victory, word reached him that Thebes had revolted, believing him dead. Rage and urgency gripped the young king. He marched 250 miles. In only 2 weeks, an astonishing pace across harsh terrain, and appeared outside Thebes before its people realized the truth. Alexander offered mercy, demanding only the surrender of 2 leaders. But the Thebans mocked him and called for all of Greece to rise under Persia's banner. Alexander's fury ignited. The siege that followed was brutal. Macedonian forces stormed the city from multiple points, aided by their garrison in Cadmea. Thebes' warriors fought desperately, their strength honed in the gymnasia and their resolve steeled by the defense of their families. For a moment, it seemed they might repel the invaders, but Alexander's reserves outflanked them and broke into the city. Street by street, house by house, the Macedonians and their allies overwhelmed the defenders. By nightfall, Thebes was in ruins. 6,000 were killed, 30,000 enslaved, and the city itself was razed. Its lands were divided among Alexander's allies. While Thebes vanished from the map of Greece, the destruction of Thebes sent shockwaves throughout the Hellenic world. Other states that had considered rebellion fell silent. Athens, shaken, sought forgiveness, which Alexander granted reluctantly after persuasion. But though outwardly Greece obeyed, inwardly resentment and hatred toward Alexander hardened. The memory of Thebes' destruction would never fade. Yet for the moment, Alexander had achieved absolute security. Greece was subdued, his throne secure, his enemies humbled. The stage was set for the greatest campaign of the ancient world. With his kingdom stabilized and his authority unchallenged, Alexander now turned his gaze eastward, crossed the Hellespont toward the vast Persian Empire. There he would embark on a conquest that would carry him from the mountains of Anatolia to the deserts of Egypt, from the plains of Mesopotamia to the heart of Asia itself. The age of Alexander had truly begun, and the world would never be the same.